Hey, it's Chuck. Today, an interesting name for the Buckeyes finally hits the portal. Let's get it.
And I don't think he's going to throw the ball as much as he thinks he's going to throw the ball now that Chip Kelly's on board. And I'm happy about that. More quarterback.
The truth is, Ryan Day has made a change philosophically, but it's none of those.
You all know who wins. LSU is the drunkest fan base in the country.
And welcome in. My last day in Arizona. I am ready to get home. I'm ready to get back to my studio. I can't stand looking at this and seeing this hideous background. I want to see my Buckeye stuff. It makes me happy when I'm recording this, and it's also been a real pain. But I've been happy to get in 4 shows during the week, and I tried to do my best. I hope I brought it for you guys, at least a little bit. But we've got a big show today because on the weekend show, I like to bring a whole lot of different topics and just kind of go bang, 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 and that's what we're going to get to. And we're going to start with Kyle Ford. So the current roster, wide receivers, Emeka Ibuka, Carnell Tate, J.J. Smith, Jaden Ballard, Brandon Innes, Kojo Antwi, Keon Graves, Bryson Rogers, and then we're going to get Mylan Graham and Demarion Witten later on. So Demarion Witten may or may not end up a wide receiver. There's talk about, he may be a tight end. I don't know if he's ever going to get that big, and he's certainly a good enough athlete to remain a wide receiver. So, we'll see, but he is going to start in the wide receiver room. And what we have there is 10. Now, 10 is the number that it's an ideal number. Well, UCLA wide receiver Kyle Ford has entered the portal. Kyle Ford is a former 5-star. He was number 31 overall in the country. A really good wide receiver. He was 6'3", 215, big dude out of high school. And he was good. He was really good. Last year, he put up for UCLA. He transferred from USC to UCLA because he was kind of injured and just went across town to play for Chip. Last year, 22 catches, 236 yards, and 1 touchdown. And to me, this doesn't seem like a good fit for Ohio State as he only has 1 year left from his end. It would feel good for us, right? But why would he want to do that? I don't know. But Chip Kelly reached out to him. And Kyle Ford said that he would like to play for Chip. He's got 6 other schools that are interested in him. And with that 1 year of eligibility, I just don't see how this makes sense for him. But if he wants to do it, I still think there's a chance we might lose 1 or maybe even 2 of those depth piece wide receivers. And it might be something really good for the Bucs. So Chip called him. He must want him. And if they can finagle that, I think that would be a really good deal. As for our offensive line portal watch, not a single offensive lineman entered the portal today, except for a 3-star out of Georgia State. So definitely not anybody still in that portal that would be a plug-and-play guy. There are a couple guys who might be depth pieces, but I really don't think the Buckeyes are interested in adding depth pieces. I think that they have enough numbers as far as depth for sure. And it seems to me like Ryan Day's philosophy has not been to just add depth pieces. If he sees he can upgrade a depth piece, he thinks that he can develop those depth guys into better players, and he'd rather stick with them rather than bring in other depth guys. And I think that's a really good philosophy, because once you start doing that with depth guys, that might be a way to lose the team. If, let's say, for instance, I'm going to, push out George Fitzpatrick and bring in 3 other depth pieces, or then you don't have enough spots to go get the 3 or 4 offensive linemen they might want to bring in the class. I just don't think it's a good strategy to do that. And I think they should ride with their evaluation and their recruiting and their development and stick to, potential starters or the 2 deep when it comes to most spots. But for offensive linemen, I don't know. A plug-and-play guy would be great. It just doesn't seem to me like it's going to happen here. It certainly hasn't happened yet. None of these guys are anywhere close to that level. And I just don't think that there's anybody in there that really makes any sense to go after right now. However, the best kicker in the country has entered the portal, and that is Lou Groza Award winner Graham Nicholson from Miami of Ohio. He is a kid from Cincinnati and down there at Oxford now, been in Ohio all his life, and I think he is 100% Buckeye. Having a great kicker is such a great peace of mind. It's been a really long time since I've felt that from a Buckeye kicker. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if he entered the portal with the intentions of going to Ohio State if something might have been discussed through a friend of a friend, which is not illegal as far as I know, right? The players can talk to other players. So if the Buckeyes don't make this happen, I would consider it a pretty big failure. It just makes way too much sense. We got to get this one big time. This is a very exciting portal entry and a very exciting portal ad if they can get them. And that would make my day. I wouldn't care if they got anybody else if they got this guy, because having a kicker of that caliber, gosh, it's a weapon. It really is. It's a weapon, and it might win you a game. Seriously. How many single players on a team can you say won you a game all on his own? A kicker can do that. A kicker can be the difference between, having to go for it late in the game to try and get a first down, or being able to line up for a 50-yard field goal and think, hey, there's a 75% chance this guy can make it, and this guy can. He's that dude. He's a Lou Groza winner, All-American. So it would be awesome. I would really love it, and I like that he's an Ohio kid too. So I'm hoping that he entered the portal with some kind of something already have been talked about. That would be really cool. And we got some confirmation from multiple sources. We talked about last night, Jaden Rashada, transfer from Arizona State, entered the portal. And it was speculated, and their guy reported, I showed you last night, one of their local guys had reported that Sam Levitt, the transfer that came in, was actually beating him out and was most likely going to be the starter. And we did get some confirmation of that. Sam Levitt was going to be the starter, and Jaden Rashada was not. And that is most likely why he transferred. And then we heard this horrible news today that our guy, Dallan Hayden, is scheduled a visit to go out to Colorado. And if you've been watching me for any length of time, you know how I feel about Colorado, but I won't get into that now. Just from a football perspective, I don't really see this being a good move for Dallan at all. Colorado, of course, has Jordan Seaton, 5-star Mr. Everything lineman last year, who will start for them at left tackle this year. The Buckeyes missed out on him when he surprised everybody on signing day by going on ESPN and transferring or committing to Colorado. Then he didn't sign his paperwork, and it looked like maybe he was going to stay home at Maryland, and then he ended up going out there. But other than him, well, him too, the 5 new offensive stars, the whole new line. It's an entirely new line. So you got Seaton, and then they're going to have 4 new guys, and most of them will probably be transfers that they bring in. And it's just they're not getting the caliber of transfers even that are guys that you would be like, okay, they're all new, but they're good. So at least if they can get a little time together, they're not that type of guys. They're getting average dudes, and a lot of times they're backups at their school, and they don't even have the benefit of a spring trying to gel together. They're going to throw this mishmash bunch of dudes all together, and Dallan Hayden is going to be stuck behind that, man. I hope not. I really hope not. I'll always root for Dallan Hayden. I think he's a good dude, and even though he left, when players leave, if I like him, if they leave for a reason that it doesn't seem like I don't know. I guess I should always root for him, right? But I suppose there are some instances where I might not. Like if they trash the team on their way out the door. How about that? If they trash the team on their way out the door, I wouldn't root for him. Dallan didn't do that. Julian Fleming didn't do that. These are guys I'll continue to root for. I don't want to root for Dallan Hayden at Colorado. I will, but I certainly don't want to. I think it would be a big mistake if he did that. And he doesn't even seem like the type of personality who would be drawn in by that. Like Jordan Seaton, absolutely. That dude is a very much an attention-seeking young man, and you could certainly see why he would be drawn to that. But Dallan is not that guy. He's a shy dude. So that really surprised me when I saw that. And I hope not, but I would think he might end up transferring again. So overall, since this portal's open, it's been a bit of a snooze fest. Like overwhelmingly, the people in this portal are guys who aren't cracking the field, and in some cases, a lot of cases, aren't cracking the 2 deep, and they understand that they won't be playing anytime soon. So they're entering the portal looking for a place, that they can go play rather than a place where they can go make more money, which was the big fear heading into this, that a whole lot of starters were going to just be shopping for bags, and they were going to be switching teams and portal chaos, etc. And some of these portal announcements have been hilarious. So there's a big portion of folks from certain websites, a lot of them the recruiting websites that I read all day, but they announce on social media when a guy from a prominent school transfers, and I don't know, it might increase traffic or something, but they drop a little graphic. And when they do it when this is a guy from like Miami or Ohio State, always. Okay. So a guy from a bigger or a high profile school enters the portal and they put on there the graphic. And then ideally it would be something like Sean Perry has entered the portal, 2-year starter with 1 year of eligibility left, 73 tackles, 3 picks last year. But this portal, there's not been hardly any starters and not many with juice. So if it's a dude from a high profile school, they're putting their silly post out with, like, these are third stringers, right? So they have nothing, no accomplishments. So they're putting out things like, was once committed to Oklahoma, then flipped during his commitment to Miami, or held 14 offers out of high school. It's like each one has been more hilarious to me. And I kind of hate that these portal windows are starting to feel exciting to me, but they are. I don't know. I mean, I compare it to signing day, but it shouldn't feel good. Like signing day always feels fun and good. I don't know that I should feel fun and excited by this, but it's starting to feel exciting. Almost like the free agency period in sports where free agency is fun. NFL free agency isn't really fun. But when I used to follow basketball or baseball heavily, those free agency periods were pretty fun. And I'm getting that the spring, I'm getting the early signing day feeling in these windows of portal transferring, and I don't want it because it sucks, because I think it's bad for the sport. What I really hate is schools like the Toledos, who try their best to recruit really good, develop a guy, and then his best years are spent with someone else when he transfers out. By the way, Toledo is out recruiting Michigan right now, and Sharon Moore still has not signed a single guy since he's been there, which is just unbelievable as long as he's been there. I'm dumbfounded by that. But we look at a guy like Will Kasmerick, goes to Ohio, he's under-recruited, goes to Ohio University. They go recruit him. They want him. They bring him in, nurture him, develop him. Will gets the call up. Ohio State's calling. I certainly don't fault him. He's living the dream. That's where he thought he should have been when he headed out of high school. But it just sucks for those schools. TCU just lost their best young tackle. They, got him in, developed him, and he's out the door looking to kind of upgrade his school. So I can always understand when a guy wants to go upgrade to the higher competition or the next level. It's natural. It's what, great people do. They go to compete against the best and be the best. But it really stinks for the assistant coaches. It's like everybody in those staffs. I mean, it's just a bummer. And I hate that I get excited when there's so many people who are kind of getting the shaft on this deal. But I kind of do. And a lot of us are, because there's a whole lot of new traffic going on at websites and places where we go to get our news about these transfer portals. So, some of my favorite places to read all day, like 24/7 or On3. It's a big celebration, a lot like signing day. And these sites went from signing day and all the traffic and all the buzz around signing day to adding these 2 transfer portal windows, which has got to have like tripled their business, right? Like, think about that. You got these transfer portal windows are now as big of talk, if not bigger, than signing day. I imagine business is booming at those places. And maybe the next time, the next portal window, it might be a really interesting idea, is if to really blow it up for them, maybe they should have one of their big voices over at like 24/7 or something come out like a month before and promote the transfer portal like for a whole month leading up to it, with a bunch of stories about how crazy it's going to be.
I think the college football public is still severely underestimating what that actually means. Like, what kind of tangible impact is that going to have? The impact's going to be enormous.
Like, teams are going to lose whole wide receiver rooms.
A lot of you are nervous. Frankly, you should be nervous.
Worse yet, they already know where they're going.
And so that's getting ready to happen.
They're bought and paid for.
It's going to be like jumping into 50-degree water. It's gonna make you tense up for a second.
Hayden Proctor, who transferred to Iowa from Alabama and then went back to Alabama, like that's going to be a small story compared to what's going to happen.
And friends, it is going to take you by surprise.
I think if you had someone at 247 or something like do that.
And I mean no players who are safe right now.
Pump it up like that.
The transfer portal is on high alert.
Like the whole college football world will like talk about that person in that show for like the whole month leading up to it. And like people who had never even heard of it would be like, who's that? What's that show? And they'd be like, oh, that's so-and-so. And then they go check it out.
Coaches text me and ask me what I'm hearing.
Like see who that show is. And I just think it would be beneficial to the host, even if he was wrong.
Do you understand now just how enormous?
Because if he was wrong, he could just come out in the end and say, well, they all heard the alarm.
I think that collectives have done an excellent job of getting out ahead of this. And
so they adjusted. And believe me, I didn't want this to happen anyway. I'm happy about it.
I don't want there to be big movement. So if there's a thing that happens in this calendar year of college football where I have to sit here and tell you, man, I whiffed on that one, I kind of hope it's this.
Like, I think that might be a really good idea. I don't know. I might email him that idea.
Over on the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel, over on the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel, over on the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel, they'll have an entire special for it on Tuesday morning.
But there was big speculation that many big-time starters were going to just kind of be shopping big deals, right? Somebody's going to come, offer them a bunch of money, make them an offer that they can't refuse, and they're out the door. And we saw some of that last fall portal. And I think that that was a real education to a lot of schools that, yes, in fact, pieces on your team, important pieces, will just get up and go if you aren't proactive about it and have that conversation with them ahead of time, see if they're happy, see what they might be looking for. I don't know, maybe gauge their market interest, what they might be, what deals may come in towards them, and, get out in front of it. You could probably usually get a hometown discount, but the worst thing to do is to wait until the portal and then try to be reactive. And I think a lot of them got the message, and a lot of them have been planning for this for a while now, ever since the last one, and seeing what happened at other places, that, okay, how do we make sure that doesn't happen to us? And they have gone about addressing things, raising funds, handling what they need to handle with guys they feel would be potential targets. And I think that's a great thing. Because when we talk about the free agency aspect, where they're just leaving for more money, I can't stand it. I respect the fact that they should be able to do it. What I don't agree with is being able to do that more than once without sitting a year. When we used to have the sit out rule, where you had to sit out a year after transferring, we rarely had any transfers. Definitely not good players were transferring just to kind of like upgrade where they were playing. Like a guy from TCU wasn't going to transfer to Texas. He's already playing in the Big 12 at TCU. He wasn't going to transfer to Texas just to kind of make the next step up and get some money. We couldn't get money back then, but you just weren't seeing that. And you sat out a year if you did it. Well, now you don't have to sit out at all. I think that as they move forward, and we know that they are going to come up with some kind of restructuring for this, that it would be a good and fair idea to allow one transfer where you don't have to sit. After that, if you want to transfer again, you got to sit a year. To me, that seems like something that is both fair, because people go into situations sometimes where they think that they're good enough, right? We all think we're great at whatever we do if we put everything into it. Some of us aren't realistic, and we think we can get it done, or maybe we think we're going to develop in a way that we don't end up developing. So a guy comes into Ohio State, he's a 5-star guy, a guy like, I don't know, Reed Carrico or something, comes in and thinks he's going to be able to get it done. And then he realizes, I might have been overestimated, or maybe I just can't handle this, or I can't compete at that level. And he wants to go to a smaller division school. And I think that that is a great thing, to let a guy like that transfer one time for free and play immediately. But after that, if you want to transfer again, you sit a year. I think that's fair. I think if that was implemented in the next system, whatever this system is that they come up with, and I don't even like talking about the options that are out there because honestly, it just makes my head hurt. There are so many different proposals and options of how to restructure this, but nothing's really getting done. So it's going to be quite a while that we're dealing with this. But again, the good news is I feel like most teams have gotten out in front of this and kind of come up with a plan that it looks like has been pretty effective in keeping many of the players who make up the core units of teams where they're at. As for our Buckeyes, I think we're still going to lose a few more guys probably next week, right? But originally, I thought we might lose maybe one of our good guys on the two deep on the defensive line. I was thinking that somebody might come in and steal away one of that second group of defensive linemen with just a big sack of money, and they would, maybe give the Buckeyes a chance to counter, and they just wouldn't have the money to keep everybody there because there's a whole lot of mouths to feed on that defensive line. So that was just kind of, if I was speculating, where might we lose a guy who might be a somewhat impactful player? I was thinking that might be it. But if it was going to happen, I was thinking it would happen really quick, and it hasn't happened. So I'm cautiously optimistic that, hopefully I was wrong about that one. Shakai Mills-Knight, running back out of Tennessee, we talked about yesterday. It came out today, his visit schedule, and he is taking 5 visits: Miami, Oregon, Auburn, Tennessee, and his last visit in June to Ohio State. And I think he's intentionally scheduled that last. And it's always tricky, man. It's like you want the last visit, but then we see so many times that a guy commits before he makes that last visit. So it's always scary. But this one, I think that we're going to get that last visit. Chip Kelly is traveling in Ohio this week to go look at 3 excellent Ohio prospects. Not prospects, but I guess, I don't know, Tavian St. Clair's still a prospect, but he's a commit. So he's going to check out Tavian, and then he's going to look at Nathan Bernard, who I talked about last night from Ashland, the 6'5", 227, cannon for an arm, funky delivery. He's a sophomore, and he's going to check him out, and I really like him. I really do. I mean, he's just, when you get a guy so big like that, it's just very enticing to me, and something just feels comfortable about a quarterback that's that big. I just always think like Ben Roethlisberger, but the dude's awesome. He's awesome for a kid that age, for sure. I mean, he's only 16. He's also going to make a stop to Lewis Center to see Olentangy quarterback Levi Davis. This is an undersized guy. He's about 5'11", and he's got a lot of fans rooting for him to go to Ohio State. When Cardale Jones was on that Spaces the other day that Ryan Day did with J-Book and Dave Biddle, this kid got brought up a couple times, and he's got a whole lot of people around Columbus rooting for the Buckeyes to get after him. I've not watched him myself. I should check him out. But Chip Kelly's going to go see him, so he's obviously a serious prospect. Then nationally, he is going to go to Cali to see Brady Smigel, and that is the number 2 quarterback in the class. He's a Michigan lean, and Troy Hoon, who is also in California. Then he's going to go see Diabell. Now, Diabell is on Rivals, their number 2 quarterback, and I think Diabell is the priority prospect for Chip Kelly in that cycle. And Diabell is pretty legit. I watched Diabell, and I broke down, maybe just pulled out a couple of his plays just to kind of show you a few of his plays here so you can see kind of what he's about. Really mobile dude, got a really nice arm. a really good improviser. I love dudes that can move. And honestly, I really like having Chip Kelly here because I just love a guy that we can have the threat to run. And I think it's so important in a quarterback. Obviously, I love having a guy who doesn't run too, a CJ Stroud who can just do what he can do. We know he can run. Maybe I should say I like a guy who's being allowed to run, you know, and Chip Kelly allows his kind of loosened Ryan Day up on that. I just hope it's something that sticks. Like, I hope that that's something that maybe sticks philosophically, even if Chip leaves in a couple years with Ryan Day, if he's still here. But I think Diabell is their priority recruit this cycle here of 26, and I really like him. Jeremy Birmingham did one of his episodes of Bermology where he talks about recruiting with Naeem Offord and Devin Sanchez at the same time. It was a great interview. It had some awesome answers. And I think my biggest takeaway from this awesome interview was, number one, when I looked at the cover, I could not believe how much taller Devin Sanchez is than Naeem Offord. Now, I don't know how old that is, but that's like 3 inches. That's got to be an old picture. But also, number one, these guys absolutely love Tim Walton. And number two, Naeem Offord, who obviously is in Alabama. And when you get a commitment from a guy down there, you're always scared until they put their name on the line because they're going to continue to be recruited by everybody down there. And it's always kind of like, yeah, he's committed, but is he really going to end up there? I think Naeem Offord is solid. Like, when you listen to this dude, I really encourage you guys to listen to it. Matter of fact, I'll link it in the description. He is solid, and this is an awesome interview. These two guys have a chance to just be totally legendary together, and I think it's one of the more exciting things that I can remember. It's one of the more exciting stories because they are just so dominant. They play the same position. They really want to play together. They want to lock down the secondary, and I think that's so cool. There was an incredibly awkward and hilarious moment in that interview. Now, the podcast does a weekly show live at Roosters once a week, and Jeremy Birmingham was talking to them about dinner, where they ate, and I don't know how, but Roosters got brought up. Or maybe Jeremy said not Roosters, and Devin said, "I don't like Roosters, guys. I know Columbus, or I'm sorry, you Ohio guys. I don't like that place. That's not it." So Birmingham's got this awkward moment. He's like, "What did you have?" Devin's like, "Wings." He's like, "Well, what was wrong with the wings?" Devin said he didn't like the breading. And Jeremy said, "Oh, you can order them naked." And Devin said, I didn't know that. But now that I know that, I still wouldn't go there. Dude, it had me because, Berm's in this awkward spot, right? Like, this is like a sponsor that they have a live show at. Devin Sanchez is on there. I hate it. It was good. I should replay it. I was watching Bucknuts earlier this morning, and Dave Biddle and Jay Book were on. I kind of love watching those two together. It's always a good show. But they were talking about the facilities upgrade coming, and Jay Book brought up the turf being trash. And I wanted to kind of expound on that because this is something I did a deep dive on a little while back. And I don't know how many people really even know the story or they've heard about it, but don't quite understand what is it about that turf that is the issue. So here's what happened. The field at the Shoe needed replaced in 2022. And by the way, we could all see that it needed replaced like long before that. The end zone looked pink by the time they replaced it. It was so faded. It was pretty embarrassing. So by 2022, they decided to replace the field both at the stadium and at the Woody. Now, there's two main types of field turf: monofilament and slit film. And there's also a blend of the two, but we'll just go with the two. Two different ones are monofilament and split film. So here's the difference. Monofilament are blades that are essentially just tufted in, and they're thick at the bottom, so they stand straight up. So just think like one single blade of grass on its own. Now, these look a lot like, when it's all put down in a field, it looks like a real grass field. It looks really pretty. The ball, like a baseball will roll on it, more like grass. The drawbacks of these are the rubber pellets. You can imagine they fill down into the gaps. And when they're painted over and over in the end zone, that paint kind of seeps down and coagulates around those rubber pellets and makes it a really, really hard surface. Additionally, when there's no paint, the rubber pellets really fly up and explode everywhere. When we see like games where you notice an inordinate amount of rubber pellets all over somebody, that is definitely a monofilament field. Now a slit film looks like this. You can see it's like a honeycomb shape. And this is really good for holding those rubber pellets, which makes the field last longer. And these fields do last a lot longer, and they perform faster. It's a slightly faster surface as well. This is the original style of this kind of synthetic turf. And most people use this, for a good while before the monofilament came out. Now, what's the problem with this? The problem is that cleats get stuck in these little honeycombs. And when they go to plant and turn and twist, the cleat doesn't give, it doesn't move. Like we think of Devin Brown's injury earlier this season. Let's take a look at that.
Guys, comment below on what you think happened to him. This obviously sucks. Scary, scary injury here. Folks, watch the left foot on Devin Brown. Watch the left foot. Watch it. Boom. We wiggle there at the end. That's when it just got unstuck from the turf. Guys, comment below.
Now you can see right there, Devin's toe gets stuck. If Devin's toe comes up out of that turf, he doesn't get that injury, but that cleat gets stuck in there now. That happened on regular monofilament turf. That didn't happen on slit film. It's just the first thing that popped into my head to give you an example of what the concern is about this. So as of now, there are 3 teams in the NFL that still have this turf. Now, the Buckeyes, when they did this, they did it in 2022. And like literally maybe like the next week after it was installed, the NFLPA came out with a big statement saying that they want the NFL to outright ban this kind of field. So Ohio State is like, oh shit, they just replaced this. We're talking $1.8 million at the shoe and at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. And a week later, the NFLPA is saying we need to ban this kind of turf. And obviously it led to people like getting into Jane, like, hey, what are we going to do here? You guys just replaced this with the wrong stuff. So the NFLPA has studies, and the NFLPA's studies show that there are more sprains and such on that slit field, and it's a very incremental number. But the NFL has counter studies that say, yes, we agree with your study. However, there are less catastrophic injuries like ACLs and such on that slit film. So, who to go with, I don't know. Neither of them really acknowledge the other one's studies, but the NFL teams who had the slit film did go and change it. There was like maybe 8 to 10 at the time. Now there's only 3 left, and that's it's Cincinnati, Minnesota, and Indianapolis still have the slit, and that's what the Buckeyes got. So they go to Gene. Gene, what's up, man? You just put this stuff here that the NFLPA wants banned, and Gene says he has no plans of changing it. And he says we have no plans of changing it because we put artificial turf in there to make it more usable. We have 5 concerts in the stadium this summer. We just had George Strait, Chris Stapleton. We broke records. We have 4 more coming in August. So I really feel like our injury prevention program and our sports science is the best there is. So essentially, Gene said, we're keeping it because we've got a good injury prevention and sports science program. Now, injury prevention, I think there's a lot of people who would disagree with Gene on that. But he was totally ducking the fact that it is the slit film turf that's the problem and was the question, not artificial turf. However, what the NFLPA really wants is grass everywhere. They don't want the monofilament turf either. They would prefer that one to the slit, but they want real grass. And we know that we really can't get real grass in the shoe anymore. ever since they took the track out and lowered the field, I believe it's another 8 feet, it sits under the water table and makes growing grass really difficult. And we remember what it looked like the last game they had grass. It was an absolute disaster. And it's not always going to look like that. The sod didn't take there. I mean, I think they could do a decent job growing grass, but according to what we're being told, they really can't grow good grass in there anymore. And that sucks. Like I enjoy watching on grass, and I would much rather watch the guys play on grass. I think it's less injuries. I think it's less pain. And ultimately, they all love it. And I'd rather them play on the surface that they love. I never played any sports or even really ran on this new age monofilament turf at all. It looks so much like grass. But what I really love about the look of it is when we used to see the brand new turfs when they first came out, when the Ohio State first got this new era of turf at the stadium, when the sun hits it, when you're watching on TV or as a spectator, you see like that sheen of the sun across it. And sometimes it's so bright on TV. I cannot stand it. But this new age monofilament does not look like that at all. And that's why I love it. Dude. So, the Rules Oversight Committee, as we expected, have officially approved the helmet communications effective immediately. They're going to have one guy on each team that's allowed to wear the green dot, so like the quarterback and Cody Simon, and they're going to have the green dot, and it's going to shut off with 15 seconds left in the play clock. You got to let the officials know ahead of time, ahead of the game, who is going to be your green dot wearer, and the conferences as a whole can decide who they want, what manufacturer they want to purchase the equipment from. But most likely it's going to be that CDC company that we talked about before, the guy that said he owes Jim Harbaugh a Christmas card, and he does. As far as the 2-minute warning goes, I think it's interesting. I think it adds, another way you can either screw up or excel in clock management, and it's another opportunity for Ryan Day to shine now that he's not calling plays, and he'll have more time to work on that kind of stuff at the end of games. So it'll be interesting. It's a whole other thing. And the College Football Leadership Committee came out and they pushed back after that CDC CEO said that about Jim Harbaugh, and said it had nothing to do with Harbaugh, that it's been in discussion for years, which I think proves exactly the opposite of what he's trying to prove. Because if it's been in discussion for years and it's just happening this year immediately, then it kind of says to me something made you go ahead and push it over the finish line right now. Interviews after the first and third, these are generally terrible. I can't stand these things. It's usually like just an irritated coach who just quickly says something to get him out of his face. Guy's coaching a game. And then on top of it, they put him in the box, and then we usually miss like 1 or 2 plays because they got the TV on the game on the small box. I really can't stand it. And speaking of Michigan and penalties, the NCAA investigation into Arizona State University has concluded, and penalties have been made public. Arizona State was accused of violations after a package came to them anonymously 3 years ago. And this package was accusing them of various violations during the COVID dead period. The same thing we talked about with Michigan. And this is while Herm Edwards was their coach. Now, Antonio Pierce, who is now the head coach of the Raiders, was on Herm Edwards' staff, and he was called the ringleader of these violations, which included working with a recruit in a park when he wasn't allowed to, purchasing travel accommodations to bring kids in to visit Arizona State when they weren't allowed to during that COVID dead period. And this happened with dozens of recruits. They imposed some self-punishments of a bowl ban, and the NCAA then came on top of that and gave them 4 years probation, vacated games that any of those guys that they recruited who had actually signed participated in, reduced scholarships, and gave them additional recruiting restrictions. Now, it's interesting to see here that they had vacated games as part of their penalty. I don't know. It doesn't list, none of the articles list how many of the players who were actually involved in this had participated in games that were going to be vacated. So I'm not sure yet exactly what games are going to be vacated, but this is much more severe than the punishment Michigan got. However, it makes me think if they are doing vacated games for this, a couple of things. Number one, yeah, I guess it is pretty serious, right? I got told a lot after I did the story the other day about Michigan. It's not that serious. I think it is pretty serious. I think it's a real slap in the face. And you know who agrees with me? A real leader, the Arizona State president, who came out and said Arizona State is extremely disappointed and embarrassed by the actions of a certain former employee who took advantage of a global pandemic and hid their behavior. So, and that's exactly what happened at Arizona State and at Michigan. And I think, kudos to him, that president. I mean, that's leadership. You do wrong, you stand up and own it, you take your medicine. It's called dignity. You don't hire a bunch of lawyers, threaten to leave your conference, say it was your rival coach hiring investigators, and cry about due process, which is a legal term and has nothing to do with any of this. And then have your school president and AD write garbage letters, fighting back on everything when you're clearly guilty and everybody can see it with film and video on our TVs. I mean, kudos to them. And congrats to ASU and their president and fan base, who rightly put the blame where it belongs on Herm Edwards and Antonio Pierce, who clearly were responsible for this. All right, so before we wrap it up, I got something to share with you guys, a couple of personal things here. So the other morning I woke up, and in the beginning of the show, I had a couple of listeners, like in the first week, and one of them was named Eduardo. And Eduardo was an awesome dude who was kind of cheering me on, like, hey, you got this, man. Good job. Keep going. And we would talk about the things I said in the show. And I started doing a T-shirt giveaway, right? Ask a trivia question, and anybody who answered it right, the first person who answered it right, I would mail them a T-shirt. So one of the guys that won one of those T-shirts was Eduardo. So I woke up, and in my email was this picture right here. And this picture is Eduardo with his Juck on Buck shirt standing at El Morro in Puerto Rico that was built in the 1500s. And I think that is amazing that he thought to take that with him down to Puerto Rico, watch his Juck on Bucks overlooking the ocean, and send me that picture. So thank you so much, Eduardo. And thank you, all you guys. But I mean, it's just been a crazy, incredible journey for me here. We're wrapping up month number 3 here real soon. We just hit 4,000 subscribers. I don't know how, but I just thank you guys so much. I mean, like, I'm having a blast, and it's got me invigorated to keep up with, what started off as a little tiny hobby I was doing maybe once every other day to kind of like an everyday show. And I appreciate you guys so much for kind of rooting me on and telling me, I'm doing good and I could get better. And that's what I'm just trying to do. I'm just trying to get better every day. Anyway, that's my show, guys. Thanks for joining me while I've been on vacation. Sorry if my stuff was lackluster today. I know my set certainly was, and I wasn't quite as in tune to things as I usually am, but I can't wait to get home, get back to my set, and get back to my little doggies. So I will talk to you guys soon. Juck on Bucks out.